This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses.
So it finally happened. I got asked by Keith to do an Eric Johnson kind of introduction for his latest video. If you haven't watched that yet, maybe go jump over and have a look at that. It's the history of Eric Johnson's guitars. Now, Eric Johnson I probably put as my favourite guitarist. The first time I heard Eric Johnson, I think would have been on the G3 Steve Vai, Eric Johnson, Joe Satriani tour, which was actually filmed in 1997. Which was when I started playing guitar, so that was weird. Anyway, so at the time I was heavily into Steve Vai and into Joe Satriani, and you know, so I would have seen the G3s with John Petrucci and stuff like that, maybe, or maybe not even yet. And this guy came on playing a 335 and sounded, to my ears, you know, a little bit different to these other chaps. At the time, I wouldn't have really listened to Stevie Ray Vaughan. I wouldn't have really listened to anything like Chet Atkins. So it was the first time that I was exposed to some of this stuff. And yeah, basically a guy using the pentatonic scale in a way that I'd not heard before. And also using kind of chord melody type stuff and blending lines with chords in this kind of clean way. You know, the thing that I really like about Eric Johnson. And so I think from there, what I would have done is probably looked up Manhattan, which would have been the tune that jumped out at me most from that video. That tune for me, I think, may have even pushed me towards jazz a little bit, because that tune kind of has the Wes Montgomery thing going on with the octaves, and it's got some really nice little altered stuff in the solo as well, and that sound was probably at the time for me quite fresh, as well as the tune being a really beautiful mix of this kind of octavey, clean melody, and then pretty kind of melodic but sometimes fast solos, the quintessential Eric Johnson thing, which I really like. So the album that I would recommend for people to listen to of Eric Johnson would be Venus Isle. I think that's probably a perfect album and has some of the best recorded guitar tone and some of the most beautiful like interludes as well. And so I would listen to that album maybe from start to finish if you can, over a few kind of sittings, because between songs like Venus Isle and Battle We Have Won, there's this really beautiful little piece of chord stuff which I've actually broken down on the channel before. And then, you know, you get songs like SRV, which I would highlight as being one of these kind of really tuneful Eric Johnson things, and it also has a solo from Jimmy Vaughan on it, I think, but a really cool short snappy track. And I think my favourite solo of Eric Johnson's and the most kind of impressive and maybe unique Eric Johnson stuff, I think would be Lonely in the Night. And so give that one a listen. Andy Wood has actually broken down some of that solo as well, I think, on Patreon. But Lonely in the Night has this incredible, there's like two guitar solos in it. There's one to start with, you know, in the middle of the tune, which starts off amazing and ends amazing. And then there's an outro solo, which was kind of even more crazy still. When the Sun Meets the Sky is a really nice ballad. I think Eric Johnson has an underrated voice as well. I really like the way he sings. It sounds kind of effortless and really tuneful. And one of the things that I really like about Eric Johnson is the kind of lushness of his arrangements and production. You'll probably notice that I myself am a big fan of reverb and kind of diffused delays and stuff, and I think you hear a lot of that in Eric Johnson's album stuff. I improvised all of this stuff for Keith to use in the video, so there was like a little bit of a kind of chord clean part that I recorded through the EricFreeze preset. If you want to try that, it will be in the Freeze bundle. I may not have even put it in there yet, but I can do. And yeah, the idea of that is kind of like what he does live, and I would suggest going on YouTube and watch some of his live stuff, because it's kind of refreshingly different from most guitarists, and he does this thing where he sustains a pad for a long time and sort of improvises around it. So there's Austin City Limits is where you see quite a lot of this stuff, or Live in Austin. The introductions that he does to Cliffs of Dover, which have transformed over the years. I think there's a good chance that they're kind of slightly prepared, but there's a lot of improvisation in Eric Johnson's playing, which is another thing that I really like. You know, you don't see him play the same solos over and over again. He's always kind of reaching for something new and something different. But yeah, these clean intros where he'll use the Boss DD3 to sort of freeze the sound and then play over this repeating kind of drone. When I first saw that, there's an instructional video of him doing that, and I thought that's incredible, and that became a big part of how I practice as well. So I think Eric Johnson has to be, although I've not learned tons and tons of like his licks and stuff, it's something that I've taken quite a lot from, certainly his chord playing, certainly his kind of tone, certainly the way that he plays so melodically and like things sound like melody. I've tried to kind of incorporate some of that into my own playing, and I'm really glad that I heard him when I did, because I just think he sounds incredible. If you want to leave your comments of your favourite Eric Johnson moments, feel free to do so. I think my top 3 would be Manhattan, Lonely in the Night, and maybe even some of these live introductions, because I think they are really top tier guitar playing. Oh, and by the way, if you're interested in some more specific Eric Johnson-y stuff, there are loads and loads of breakdowns of kind of chord parts and all sorts of stuff like that on this channel. If you use the like search bar, search John Cordy, Eric Johnson, you'll probably find a ton. And yeah, I'll catch you in another video soon. One more thing, I think we should also mention the inspiration that Eric Johnson gave to some other great guitar players. So someone like Andy Timmons is quite vocal about it. Joe Bonamassa, I think Sean Lane has even spoken about it. Like, he has inspired a whole bunch of great players. So in some ways, Eric Johnson is responsible for more than just Eric Johnson.